Hello and welcome to Rosa Taylor and the Bibb County School District. We are
Merja Fuller
and Trevi Thomas, District Intervention Coaches for the Bibb County School District. We are delighted to have you volunteer to serve as readers for our students during Read for the Record.
This year, Candlewick Press and Jumpstart are proud to partner together in celebration of the 10th anniversary of Jumpstart's Read for the Record, a global campaign that generates public support for high-quality early learning and highlights the importance of building children's vocabulary and love of reading. On October 22, 2015, millions of adults and children around the world will join together and read Not Norman, a Goldfish Story by Kelly Bennett.
In this video, you will learn the basics of implementing an effective read-aloud to elementary students.
A read-aloud is a vibrant, deliberate part of good teaching. It is an essential and effective strategy for delivering sophisticated literacy ideas to learners and consumers of language.
A read-aloud is an opportunity for individuals to read to children texts above their independent level, but at their listening level.
Whenever we read aloud to students, we always want to have a purpose in mind for reading. Some examples are: 1, to just simply read for pleasure. 2, you may be reading to expose students to new concepts. And finally, you might want to read to teach a comprehension strategy.
To maximize this reading opportunity, you will engage the readers in the following comprehension strategy: making connections, specifically making text-to-self connections.
When making text-to-self connections is simply when you're reading the book, something in that book is going to remind you of an event that is happening in your own life.
Well, why make connections? We teach students that reading is thinking, that we actually have thoughts in our minds about what we are reading. Making connections allows the listener and the reader to identify with the text. A personal connection to the text increases comprehension of the story. Readers remember stories that are meaningful and relevant to them.
We want to provide you an example of how to make a text-to-self connection using the book that we will be using for Read for the Record, Not Norman, a Goldfish Story. And I'm just going to pick a page in the text that I can make a personal connection to, and I'm going to do it aloud so you can see how you would do this with students. I wanted a pet who could run and catch, or one who could climb trees and chase streams, a soft, furry pet to sleep on my bed at night. Not Norman. All Norman does is swim around and around and around and around and around and around and around. Now, boys and girls, when I read this part of the text, it reminds me of my daughter, Macy. We bought her a fish, and she named that fish Lily. And she complained every day, "Mommy, I don't want this fish. It can't do anything but swim." She wanted a pet that was different, just like this little boy wanted a pet that was different from Norman, because they wanted a pet that could do many things.
As you can see, reading aloud to students helps them to become thinkers. It also helps them to hear the flow of language. Furthermore, it builds their vocabulary among countless other benefits. We wanted to provide you with some tips on how to prepare so that students will get the most out of the time you spend with them during Read for the Record. Here are a few tips. Pre-read and reread the selection. Use sticky notes to highlight places to stop in order to make connections. Maybe 1 to 3 text-to-self connections will suffice. You will want to demonstrate your connections by thinking aloud. Practice reading the selection using gestures and voice intonations. Attached, you will find a manuscript of Not Norman, so that you can read over it and become familiar with it in the event that you do not have a copy of the book. But rest assured, you will have a copy of the book on the day of Read for the Record.
The day of Read for the Record, keep these tips in mind. First, introduce yourself to the students by saying your name and your occupation. Secondly, you want to identify the title, the author, characters, and settings in the book. Thirdly, allow the students to make predictions as to what they think the story will be about. And you want to keep this to 3 predictions. And the reason we say that is because we have very happy students, and if you give them more than 3 chances, they will take over, and we don't want that to happen. And fourthly, explain to the students that today we're going to be reading this book entitled Not Norman, and we're going to make text-to-self connections. You will need to remind the students of what it means to make text-to-self connections. We want to provide for you an example of what that would look like the day you go in the classroom. So I will just provide that for you at this time. So I would go in the classroom and I would say, "Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Merja Fuller, and I am a district coach for the Bibb County School System. Today, we're going to be reading the story, Not Norman, a goldfish story. This story is written by Kelly Bennett. In this story, boys and girls, we're going to be introduced to 2 main characters. We have a little boy here who, oddly enough, the author did not give us his name. And then we're going to have a fish here. His name is Norman. This story would take place in many different settings, but primarily it would take place in the little boy's school and his home. At this time, if we just look at this picture, the title and the cover, who can give me a prediction of what you think this story would be about? I'm going to call on 3 quiet hands of the students who think they can tell me what this story will be about.
To conclude the story, here are some suggestions on how to end your time with the students. Number 1, thank the boys and girls for listening attentively to the text. Number 2, allow no more than 3 students to share their text-to-self connections to Not Norman, a goldfish story. And finally, be sure to encourage the students to read, and to make those personal connections, because after all, reading is thinking. I want to share with you a demonstration of how your closing should look. Boys and girls, I really enjoyed myself with you today. You were such good listeners. Now, you must promise me that you're going to read, and find that special time and that special place to read and make those connections. Because boys and girls, we know that reading is thinking.
On behalf of the Bibb County School District and United Way, we want to thank our volunteers again for supporting our efforts in Read for the Record.
Please come and read to our students again. Now you will see all of this come together as Miss French shares with you a read aloud of Not Norman. Enjoy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm so glad to be here today, and I want to tell you who I am. My name is Sandra French, like French fry. Yeah, and you know, the kids at the library where I work call me Miss Sandra. So y'all can call me Miss Sandra, or you could call me Mrs. French. How about that? Not Miss French fry. I am the children's librarian for the Middle Georgia Regional Library System. We have 14 libraries in our system. And part of that system includes the Macon Bibb Public Libraries. Now, we were talking a little while ago about the difference between a public library, right, where you have to have a library card, and this place right here. What is this place called?
Taylor Tiger.
The Taylor Tigers, but what room are we in? What library room is this? What do you call it?
Library.
The The school library or the media center. That's right. Do you have to have a library card here?
No.
No, but some of you, I heard, go with your families to the library, the public library, right? And what do you have to have at the public library? A library card. How many of you have a library card or your families have a library card? Yeah. And you're going to get one. And guess what? They are free. They don't cost, I know, right? They're free. You can check out books and DVDs. You can use the computers and do all kinds of stuff at the public library when you're not in school, right? So after you get out of school, you need homework help, you go to the public library. No, it's free. It really is. Way. But today, we're going to be reading a really cool book. It's called Not Norman, a Goldfish Story. It's about a little boy and a goldfish. And it's by Kelly Bennett. Now, just looking at the front of this book, what do you think it might be about? A fish?
A fish and a little boy.
A fish and a little boy. I know, right? That's about all we know right now. Well, because I have looked at the book, I know that this happens mostly at his school and at his home. But you know what's really weird about this story? The goldfish's name is Norman, but we don't know the little boy's name. So what we're going to look at and what we're going to think about as we're reading this book is what you guys have learned to call text-to-self connections.
Why don't you want to say jump start at the bottom?
Jump Start, because that is part of the program that we're a part of as we read this book. Now, what does text-to-self connection mean?
It means it's not real.
Well, it could be. This is a story that's not necessarily true, but text-to-self connection actually means that as we're reading this story, there are things in here that you might connect with, that you might go, oh, for example, how many of you have ever really, really wanted a pet? Right? And probably you might already have a pet.
Yep.
Well, Norman wants a pet. You want to see what happens? Okay. What kind of pet do you think he's going to get? A fish?
Yes.
Could be right. Let's see. It starts out. What do you think's happening right here?
He got a fish for his birthday.
That's what it looks like to me too. The words on this page say, when I got Norman, I did not want to keep him. I wanted a different kind of pet. Not Norman. He got
a fish. He didn't want a fish.
No, he didn't, did he? Well, let's see what happens. I wanted a pet who could run and catch, or one who could climb trees and chase strings. A soft, furry pet to sleep on my bed at night. Not Norman. All Norman does is swim around and around and around and around and around and around and around.
We have a fish
And around.
and 2 dogs.
Do you? Okay, let's listen right now. Let's see what happens. This is it, Norman, I decide. I'm trading you for a good pet. Norman doesn't move. Not even a fin twitches. How can I trade him like this? No one will want a sorry-looking fish in a gunky bowl. Well, when I drop Norman into his nice clean bowl, he starts dipping and flipping, flapping his fins around. He looks so goofy, I have to laugh. Don't think just because you made me laugh, I'm going to keep you, I say. Tomorrow, you're out of here. Norman blows a stream of bubbles. Well, the next day I take Norman to school with me. You know, if I talk him up real good during show and tell, maybe someone will want him. On the way there, we see my friend Austin. Austin has a real cool dog and 7 puppies. Want to swap one of your pups for Norman, I ask? Austin said, who's Norman? I say, my goldfish. Well, by the time I rescue Norman, half the water's gone from his bowl. Look what happened. I'm sorry, I tell Norman when we get to school. I'm really sorry. He just stares at me all googly-eyed. And finally, it's my turn to show and tell. Just as I start to talk about goldfish, Emily shouts, "Jenny's gone! Oh no! Who let my snake loose? What happened?" He's in front of the class trying to talk about his show and tell pet, Norman, and her snake gets loose. Do you think anybody's going to listen to him? What do you think's going to happen?
But she yelled that. That wasn't a great thing. She could have raised her hand.
She could have raised her hand. Well, that's right. She could have raised her hand, just like you did.
Why do I see water like something peeking out of the bowl? Like
Right here?
no,
Up here?
no, not that. You see the blue?
Oh, it's his pants. It's his pants right there.
No, not that. I'm talking about the boat. You see that?
Oh, the boat?
No, not
Oh, come show me.
the blue.
Oh, over here. Yeah, that's the water fountain. Remember the dog got all the water out? And so he's trying to put some more water back in the bowl. Oh, good eyes. Good way to observe. Well, do you think anyone hears the story of how I got Norman? The snake's running around and everybody in the room. Oh my gosh, does anybody even ask how to hold his bowl? No, they're all jumping and screaming and chasing the snake. Not Norman. He's looking right at me. Thanks for listening, I tell him. At least Norman cares, right?
Because he's a good pet for a little boy.
Oh, you think so?
I have
Oh.
a fish in the pet cam as well.
Do you?
I got it from the fair, but on Friday I went to the fair.
You got a goldfish from the fair.
Yeah, one.
Oh, do you have a name? Does he have a name yet?
Once my
No, not yet. Okay, let's listen. Let's see what happens. Well, you know, that afternoon, we go to my music lesson, and as soon as it's over, I'm taking Norman back to the pet store. So I take out my tuba and begin to play. Now, what does a tuba sound like?
like that.
You guys are pretty good at this. Do it one more time. Thank you. You know what? While he's playing, he says, I glance over at Norman, and Norman's in his fishbowl swaying back and forth to the music. And he's doing glub, 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 glug with his mouth. Look, Norman is singing. Well, look, oh my gosh. Pay attention, snaps the maestro, and try to play the proper notes. Well, Maestro makes me stay for extra practice, and by the time my lesson's over, it's too late to go to the pet store. Don't you think that just because you like my music, I'm going to keep you, I tell Norman. He just glugs.
And then
Well, let's see. That night, I'm sound asleep when screech, screech. What's that noise?
that's Norman. Probably Norman.
Scratch, screech, screech. Yikes! There's something at the window.
And
Then,
jumping.
out of the corner of my eye, I spot Norman! And he isn't scared. Does he look scared?
No.
No.
Happy.
And he's not even swimming around in circles either. He glugs, and gives me a little wave with his fin, you know. I'm not alone. So together, Norman and I slide open the curtains. It was just a broken branch scratching on my window. Whew. Thanks for watching out for me, Norman. On Saturday, I take Norman to the pet store just like I said I would. I look at the cats and dogs and snakes and birds. I look at the hamsters and mice and lizards too, but they all look like good pets. But they are not Norman. When I got Norman, I wasn't sure I wanted to keep him, but now, even if I could pick any pet in the whole world, I would not trade him. Not Norman. Did you like that? That was a good book, wasn't it? So what happened in the beginning of the story? He didn't want Norman, did he? You had your hand up first. What happened?
He didn't want Norman because he couldn't do amazing things.
He thought he wasn't going to be a very good pet, did he? Well, you know, we were talking about text-to-self connections. Can you guys, we're talking about things that happen in your real life that you might have connected with in this story. Does anybody have, you guys have pets? Have you ever had a pet you didn't like or didn't want? Or we're going to try right here.
A goldfish.
You had a goldfish one time. Was he a good pet?
Me too.
And you have a goldfish now. And yes, ma'am.
My goldfish was tough because every time there was a new fish and someone put a new fish in his bowl, he'll eat that.
No. Oh no. What?
Last time when I went to the field, guess what happened?
You got a goldfish.
My brother went in a goldfish.
Okay, one more. Yes, sir.
Once my goldfish died, so I had to get new one.
Well, that happens. Have any of you ever named any of your pets Norman?
I had.
Y'all are so funny. Well, thank you guys for letting me read to you today. And I hope all of you read every day, right? Whether you get books from the school library or media center, or you come to the public library, or you have books at home. Are you like to read? Let me see. So y'all are in first grade? Good job. Thank you. You guys